Close your eyes and imagine a scene straight out of a high-octane action movie. The roar of engines, the screech of tires, and the pounding of hearts. This is the world of the Nürburgring, the most treacherous racetrack in the world. And this is not just a racetrack. It's a place where the lines between life and death blur into nothingness. A place where only the bravest of drivers dare to venture. In this video, I'll take you on a journey through the history of this legendary track. I'll explore the secrets behind its infamous nickname, the Green Hell, and the stories of the brave drivers who have dared to conquer it. And if you think you've seen it all, just wait until I show you the annual 24 hours of the Nürburgring race, a grueling test of endurance and skill that draws in thousands of fans and drivers from around the world. So strap in, hold on tight, and get ready for the ride of your life. This is the Nürburgring, and it's not for the faint of heart. Picture this. In the 1920s, the drivers in Germany are testing their skills on public roads. But as you can imagine, racing cars on ordinary streets was like playing roller hockey on an ice rink. It's just too dangerous. Enter Dr. Otto Kreuss, a visionary government official who had a bold idea. We'll build the longest motor racing track in the world, he proclaimed, and make it an unemployment relief project. We'll give our economy a boost, showcase our engineering prowess, and create a safe place for racing. And so it began. With the help of over 25,000 workers and 40 million Reichsmarks, which is a staggering $146 million in today's money, construction of the Nürburgring circuit started in the fall of 1925. The lead architect, Gustav Eichel, faced an enormous challenge. He had to create a circuit that was safe enough for racing, but also challenging enough to test the driver's skills. And boy, did he deliver. By the spring of 1927, the Nürburgring was complete. This 17.6-mile circuit comprised 3 loops and featured a mind-boggling 174 turns. But that's not all. The shifts in elevation were so sudden and extreme that the difference in altitude from the track's highest point to its lowest was a jaw-dropping 985 feet. In 3 loops, each one is more treacherous than the last. There's the South Loop, known as the Südschleife, which stretches for 4.8 miles. Then there's the 14.2-mile North Loop, aka Nordschleife. And just when you think you're done, there's this little start-stop loop, the Südschleife, which connects the 2 major loops. But don't be fooled by its size. This is not your average racetrack. Now let me take you back in time to June 1927, where the legendary Nürburgring was christened with the Eiffel race. The track was a thing of beauty and chaos, attracting 85,000 spectators from far and wide. The air was thick with excitement and anticipation as 100 motorcycles took to the track on Saturday, followed by 65 race cars on Sunday. As the engines roared and the tires screeched, one man rose above the rest, Rudolf Brachycola. He won the first auto race and became the first ringmaster, a title that would be coveted by many in the years to come. But this was just the beginning. A month later, the first German Grand Prix took place, and it was a race that would go down in history. Drivers from all over the world were lured by the challenge of the Nordschleife, the world's longest racetrack, and they were met with a course that was as unforgiving as it was exhilarating. With every turn, every hill, every blind corner, the drivers pushed themselves and their cars to the absolute limit, risking life and limb to come out on top. After only 3 GGPs on the full race course, they decided to race just the North Loop, leaving the South Loop to smaller races and, of course, the fearless motorcycle riders. But the Nordschleife remained the ultimate test of skill and endurance, a track that would become the stuff of legends, where only the bravest and the most skilled drivers would emerge victorious. The Great Depression hit hard and the world was in turmoil. The Grand Prix races of 1931 and 1933 had been canceled, and it seemed like all hope was lost. But in 1934, the ring came back to life, and what a comeback it was. But the glory days were short-lived as the dark clouds of World War II loomed large. Racing resumed in 1947, and in 1951, Formula One arrived at the ring. The marriage between the track and the racing body started off well, but as the cars got faster and faster, it soon turned into a nightmare. The drivers had to navigate steep elevation changes, jumps, bumps, blind corners, and almost no runoff areas. It was a death trap. In just 15 years from 1954 to 1969, 5 F1 drivers lost their lives at the ring. The circuit became notorious, and Sir Jackie Stewart famously named it the Green Hell after his 1968 victory. By the 1970s, F1 cars had become so fast that even the mighty Nordschleife track couldn't handle them. With almost no runoff areas, it was a recipe for disaster. The drivers knew it, and in 1971, they refused to race until changes were made. But even with the improvements, dangers still lurked. In 1976, tragedy struck when F1 champion Niki Lauda's car burst into flames after crashing into a barrier. He was lucky to escape with his life, but it was a wake-up call for the racing world. Formula One abandoned the Nürburgring, leaving the track to find a new purpose. And so, a new circuit was born. The GP Strecke was safer, with only 12 turns and a more traditional layout. But it was still a challenge. And in 1984, a young Brazilian driver named Ayrton Senna proved himself by winning the first race on the new track. He went on to become one of the greatest drivers of all time. But it all started at the Nürburgring. As the new track was unveiled, the sound of roaring engines filled the air, signaling the triumphant return of Formula One to the Nürburgring. But little did anyone know, a storm was brewing. The track was struggling to make ends meet, and F1's president, the notorious Bernie Ecclestone, was driving them deeper into debt with his exorbitant licensing fees. The ring was hemorrhaging money, and desperation was starting to set in. To keep the lights on, the track resorted to gouging spectators with inflated ticket prices, but the fans were growing restless. Something had to give, and soon. But in the midst of this financial turmoil, other racing series were stepping up to the plate, helping to keep the ring afloat. The 24 Hours of Nürburgring was born in 1970, bringing endurance racing to the track's hallowed grounds. Meanwhile, the German touring car series, or DTM, brought a different kind of excitement to the ring, with drivers pushing their souped-up machines to the limit. But it wasn't just cars that roared around the ring. In 1986, the first ever Truck Grand Prix was held, marking a momentous occasion in the history of the circuit. The trucks, big and powerful, thundered around the track, leaving spectators in awe of the sheer spectacle. After every smart move, the Nürburgring was still on the brink of bankruptcy. But in a twist of fate, the German auto industry saw an opportunity and swooped in to save the day. You see, at the time, car manufacturers were cranking out sportier and faster cars than ever before. But to truly push these machines to their limits, they needed a proper testing ground. And where better than the ring? With its diverse terrain and challenging corners, the track offered the perfect conditions for research and development. But it wasn't just BMW's M Sport division that saw the potential of the ring. Other German car makers quickly followed suit and built their own research facilities alongside the track. And with so many high-performance vehicles being put through their paces, it was inevitable that parts would break. That's where parts manufacturers stepped in, setting up shop in the area to supply the engineers with the parts they needed to keep their cars running. And just like that, Nürburgring transformed into one of the most epic car towns in the world. But wait, the drama is not over yet. As the 90s rolled around, the Nürburgring had become a haven for top-secret testing of experimental cars. The track was alive with the sound of screeching tires, revving engines, and the smell of burnt rubber as manufacturers raced to create the fastest, most powerful machines on the planet. But with so much power and speed at play, the risk of disaster was always lurking just around the corner. To ensure the safety of the drivers and spectators, the management team at the Nürburgring set aside a staggering 16 weeks of exclusive track time for industrial testing. It was a bold move, but it paid off, as the track quickly became known as the ultimate proving ground for new and innovative automotive technology. Fast forward to the mid-2000s, and the obsession with the Nürburgring has reached a fever pitch. Every car manufacturer worth its salt was testing their latest and greatest creations at the legendary track. From American land yachts like Cadillac to sleek Japanese sports cars like the Nissan GTR, The Nürburgring was the place to be if you wanted to prove your mettle. The GTR's triumphant return to the scene was thanks in no small part to its blistering 7-minute, 28-second lap around the track, which at the time was faster than any other mass-produced car in history. The world was in awe, and a new era of automotive performance has been born. With all these cars testing at the track, manufacturers needed drivers. This legendary track has seen its fair share of remarkable drivers, but no one quite like Sabine Schmitz. Known as the Queen of the Ring, Sabine has driven over 20,000 laps on the treacherous Nordschleife, and her skills on the track are nothing short of breathtaking. If you're brave enough to join her, she'll take you on a ride you'll never forget. You'll feel the full force of gravity as you race through the 5 sweeping corners at Foxhole at full speed. And just when you think you can't take any more, you'll hit the last corner, a steep downhill descent that immediately elevates, and you'll feel the G-forces like you've never felt before. But that's just the beginning of the heart-pumping action at Nürburgring. If you want to experience the ultimate rush, head on over to Flansgarten, where you'll find a series of jumps and turns that are notorious for ending careers. This treacherous section will take you airborne not once, not twice, but 3 times in just 1 minute. You'll soar straight, sideways, and at speeds over 120 miles an hour over a slight bump while changing direction. On top of everything, the Nürburgring isn't just a racetrack. It's also a public toll road that winds its way through the picturesque Eifel Mountains. And what's more, there are times when there are no speed limits in place. That's right, you heard me correctly. No speed limits. It's like a playground for car enthusiasts and thrill seekers who want to push their vehicles to the limit. So if you have the skills and the nerve, you can take your car out on this legendary road and test your mettle against some of the most challenging twists and turns in the world.